Hi students, now let's focus on the risk area, and as you know students, exam focus, definitely one question will be there. One question on risk will be sure in most of the SBL examination or the P level examination, because you need to have that skeptical thinking. As I always tell you, this is very important. You should not go with the data they provide. You need to always probe some questions whether the data is accurate, complete, or does it have something that needs additionally to make decisions. Now, students, just to give you an idea, this section is purely based on exhibit, not from the textbook, purely based on exhibits and common sense. Now, one thing, if you have observed, the biggest issue with the students, why they don't score marks, I'll just write down here, why they don't score marks. Because students, they are testing you. Why the students don't score marks? That is the question. Now, the question that you have to effectively ask yourself is very practical. Why the students don't score marks is they do industry research and provide industry expert solutions. Now, technical answers on industry expert solution, that is the biggest issue. But here students, you are an accountant, here you are a finance professional, and you have to use your knowledge and write it more like a finance professional in that situation. So don't memorize any mocks or any previous type of risk that has happened in any other organization, because you're a finance professional in that organization. Get that understanding very well. You may be a consultant, but you are not a specialist in cloud computing. Remember that very well. Now, students, if I'm not mistaken, in the examination, they will use the term assets, they'll use the term evaluate, sometimes they may use the term discuss for the risk. So, whenever you see risk, you have to tell the impact, that is the financial impact for a risk that will happen because of these issues, financial impact. And then, students, you have to effectively explain the likelihood. Likelihood means, students, chances. Can I mention here? Chances of risk occurring, that is also known as one factor to be considered as well, the impact and the likelihood. And then students, the next thing is the safeguards. What are your mitigation strategies, the safeguards? And then students, if possible, in certain cases you can give the contingency plan as well. And this safeguard, students, you can effectively be practical and give it based on the exhibit and make it very clear and practical. You have to consider certain safeguards are expensive. So you have to have that understanding very well, and it should be relevant to the case as much as possible. Now, students, if I'm not mistaken, I will just guide you all with this risk area. Already I have discussed many sections of this same topic in the part 2, that is governance. Now it's the part 4, if I'm not mistaken, the risk section. So in this case, we are not going to duplicate the thing, but I just want to understand, give you the basic. Now risk, the basic important thing is you have to understand risk has two sides. One is known as the upside risk. Now students, upside risk means positive issues. Now sometimes you have to take a risk positive. That means if you want to take a risk, you have to grow. So that is upside risk. And then you have the downside risk, students, the adverse effect of taking a risk, the adverse effect of taking a risk. That is also one more factor to be considered as well. And then students, another factor that is very important is, students, the ideology of the strategic issues. Strategic issues means, students, now flux. Now currently we are having a flux. It's a strategic issue. We have to invest in R&D. Correct, no students? Invest in research and development. Makes sense, no students? But we don't do. But students, what I'm suggesting is just for your understanding. Another thing is operational issue. The biggest issue with the students is they give solutions. Operational issue is, students, breakdowns. Internet issues, can you remember, students? Internet issues. Now, what happens with the students is they effectively give the solutions for operational issues for strategic. Now, strategic is long term, so you have to be very, 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 very careful with that students because it is important. And then students, there is something called types of risk. Actually, students no need to memorize anything, but just for idea, it's like market risk. Students, the issue, inflation, all those things are market risk. Product risk. Now, currently, our product is IAS, no students. It's a risky product now. Outdated product, no students. That is one more thing. Commodity price issue. Now, students, internet is a very important stream that will affect our business. Like petrol is a commodity, no students. Then reputation risk as usual, but don't memorize it. Students generally write reputation risk, a blind answer for everything. Avoid it. Then you have something called the credit risk, that also, that is you are giving someone money, they are not paying on time. Currency risk, international expansion, there are chances. Then we have the interest rate risk. These are the student risk, no need to memorize anything. And then political risk, students, highly chances are there. I told you Cambridge Analytica, they were asking the data of the people, so political risk. And then students, the legal risk, because students, can you remember GDPR, Global Data Protection Act in UK? So they can bring a data protection act, cloud computing act, so many things there. Regulatory risk is also there. Regulatory bodies will come and create new standards. That is one more thing. Compliance risk is there. You have to follow the protocols of the government regulation. Technological risk we are effectively facing, no students. Then we have the economic risk also, one more thing. Then we have the environmental risk also. Then climate change. Now at the moment, now these are going beyond what we are thinking. So just keep that in mind. Financial risk or gearing risk is there. We don't know anything at the moment. So just keep this in mind. And then employee malfeasance, students. That is employee stealing data, employees malfeasance now. That anyway, just have an idea about all these functions so that your quality will be better. So students, I believe everyone has got this clearly. And I just want to give you a quick guidance on the COSO model, students. Now, actually, they won't ask you this in the exam, but it's just to have an idea. Now, students, operational risk is there, no students, day-to-day business. Reporting risk is, students, you have to make sure your financial statements, your risk report, all those things should be reported on time. And compliance is, you have to follow the government rules and regulation. So these are the top things. And then students, every business will have divisions, a huge. One is the functional department, operational unit, divisions, entity level, like Tata, all are huge companies. So they have to have a control environment for all these things, like biometrics, not only for one department, overall entity. Operations, reporting, is that reported on time? Are we with the compliance? Then the risk assessment for everything. Control activities. What are we doing? What are the safeguards we have implemented? Information and communication. In case something goes wrong, is that information going very fast? Monitoring. Are we doing an audit for this? So this is the basic idea. And again, students, just remember one thing. They may not ask you this cube in the examination, but just understand it. For risk, nothing to worry other than your common sense. Understand the exhibit very well, and if you can do the exhibit properly, students, you will not have any issues at the moment. Again, I'm telling, risk is a sure question. More than everything, skepticism, thinking is important. And please remember one thing, students, assess, evaluate, and discuss. These are the verbs, so you have to be very much focused on the verbs what you're writing. I believe it is very clear for the students. Thank you very much, students.